When the galaxy's most advanced civilizations fell to an unstoppable enemy, they turned to the one species they'd underestimated, humanity. 5 hours later, the war was over. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The Grand Council chambers of the Galactic Confederation stretched in every direction, a massive amphitheater where hundreds of species gathered. The air was thick with tension as representatives from across known space shifted nervously in their environmentally adapted seats. At the center podium stood High Counselor Zeltrix, an imposing six-limbed being with crystalline features that caught the light from the holographic displays surrounding the chamber. "The situation has become untenable," Zeltrix announced, voice amplified throughout the vast space. "The Drakari Collective has pushed beyond the Orion Arm. 17 worlds have fallen in the past standard cycle. Their fleets now approach the Cygnus Corridor." Murmurs rippled through the gathered delegates. The Violorian ambassador, a being composed primarily of translucent gas contained within an environmental suit, rose from their delegation's platform. "The Drakari have consumed 3 of our outer colonies," the Valorian's translated voice echoed. "Our defensive capabilities are exhausted. We cannot stand alone against their biomechanical swarms." Ambassador Talari of the Eldothian Republic, an ancient avian species with feathers that shifted colors with their emotions, spread her wings in agitation. Currently, they displayed a deep crimson, signaling distress. "The Eldothian forces lost 6 dreadnoughts in the Proxima engagement," she declared. "Our shipyards cannot replace such losses quickly enough. The Drakari adapt to our weapons within hours of first exposure. We need a new strategy, or new allies." High Counselor Zeltrix raised all 4 of their primary limbs, commanding silence. The chamber gradually quieted as attention returned to the central podium. "There is one species we have not yet approached," Zeltrix said, their crystalline features refracting light in patterns that conveyed deep concern. "Their territory borders the unexplored regions beyond the Perseus Gap. They are not members of the Confederation, having declined our invitation 2 centuries ago. They are—" Zeltrix paused. "The humans." The chamber erupted into chaos. Admiral Cora Nix stood at the bridge viewport of the Confederation diplomatic vessel Endless Harmony. Her 4 eyes blinked in sequence as she observed the approaching blue-green world, Earth, a planet that had been carefully avoided by Confederation diplomats since the disastrous first contact incident generations ago. "Are you certain about this, Admiral?" asked diplomatic envoy Threll from behind her. The Arcturian's tentacles twisted nervously around his ceremonial staff. "The human historical archives indicate a concerning propensity for internal conflict." Admiral Nix continued staring at the planet. "The Drakari have overwhelmed the finest military minds of 17 species, Threll. They adapt to our technology faster than we can develop countermeasures. We need something the Drakari cannot anticipate. And you believe these humans will provide that?" Threll's voice carried unmistakable skepticism. "They barely ventured beyond their own moon before turning inward again. Their technological development is remarkably uneven." "That uneven development is precisely what interests me," Nix replied, turning to face the diplomat. "They pursue technological paths no other species considered viable. Their approach to warfare is unconventional by Confederation standards." The communications officer, a methane-breathing Voltrax, gurgled from their station. "Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from the Human Defense Network. They're requesting identification and purpose." "Open a channel," Nix ordered, straightening her uniform. "Let's hope they're in a diplomatic mood." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a stern-faced human woman in a uniform adorned with insignia that Nix's translator identified as indicating high rank. "This is General Amara Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," the human stated, flatly. "Your vessel has entered restricted space. Identify yourselves immediately." Admiral Nix stepped forward. General Chen, I am Admiral Cora Nix of the Galactic Confederation. We come seeking assistance in a matter of grave importance that threatens all sentient life in this sector of the galaxy. General Chen's expression remained impassive. The last time representatives from beyond our system arrived, Admiral, they attempted to classify us as a protectorate species and restrict our development. Why should we listen now? Because the threat we face will reach your borders within one standard year if left unchecked, Nix replied bluntly. We need your help, General. The Confederation needs humanity's particular talents. A hint of curiosity flickered across Chen's face. What talents would those be, exactly? Your species' unique approach to conflict resolution, Nix answered, carefully. We wish to discuss a military alliance. There was a long pause before Chen responded. I will convene the Defense Council. You are permitted to approach Earth Orbital Station Gibraltar. Do not deviate from the approach vector we transmit, or our defense systems will respond accordingly. After the transmission ended, Threll moved beside the Admiral. That went better than expected. They haven't agreed to help us yet, Nix reminded him. We still need to convince them that joining our war serves their interests. And does it? Threll asked quietly. Admiral Nix's 4 eyes blinked simultaneously this time. If the Drakari aren't stopped, no species will remain free in this galaxy. So yes, helping us is very much in their interest, whether they realize it yet or not. The Earth Defense Council chamber was nothing like the grand halls of the Confederation. It was utilitarian, almost Spartan, with stark lighting and minimal ornamentation. 12 humans sat around a circular table representing various military and governmental bodies from across their planet. Admiral Nix stood at the center with Envoy Threll, acutely aware that this moment could determine the fate of hundreds of civilizations. Let me understand this correctly, said Defense Secretary Omar Bakri, leaning forward in his chair. Your Confederation, with its thousands of member worlds and centuries of advanced technology, is losing a war against these Drakari. And now you want our help? Admiral Nix inclined her head slightly. That is correct, Secretary Bakri. The Drakari utilize a form of adaptive biomechanical technology that evolves in response to our weapons and tactics. They consume resources and incorporate defeated species into their collective. Their expansion has been exponential. General Chen, seated opposite Bakri, narrowed her eyes. And what exactly do you think we can contribute? Your briefing indicates the Drakari have already adapted to energy weapons far beyond our current capabilities. The Drakari anticipate logical progressions in technology and tactics, Nix explained. Their collective intelligence analyzes patterns and predicts countermeasures. But humanity, she paused, choosing her words carefully. Humanity does not adhere to the same patterns of technological development or military doctrine as Confederation species. A silver-haired woman at the far end of the table spoke up. You want our unpredictability, our irrationality, said Dr. Layla Sharma, Director of Special Weapons Research. It wasn't a question. Precisely, Nix confirmed. Humans approach problems from angles no other species considers. You develop technologies that other civilizations deemed impractical or unnecessary. Your military history demonstrates a capacity for unconventional warfare that might confound the Drakari's adaptive algorithms. Secretary Bakri leaned back in his chair. And what does Earth gain from this alliance? You mentioned technology exchange in your proposal. Envoy Threll stepped forward, his tentacles unfurling a holographic display. We offer complete access to Confederation medical technology, which would eliminate most human disease and extend your lifespans considerably. Additionally, we will provide FTL drive schematics compatible with your engineering capabilities and navigation charts for all explored sectors. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. General Chen was the first to speak again. How? Much time do we have before the Drakari reach Earth's sector? At current expansion rates, 11 standard months, Nix replied. But if we can halt their advance at the Cygnus checkpoint, they need never approach your system at all. Dr. Sharma tapped her fingers on the table thoughtfully. And you'll need our weapons, our tactics, and our soldiers. Initially, we need your strategic minds and unconventional weapons technology, Nix clarified. If those prove effective, a broader military alliance would follow. Secretary Bakri exchanged glances with the other council members before addressing Nix directly. We'll need 6 hours to discuss this privately and consult with our respective governments. Nix felt a flicker of hope. It was more consideration than she had dared expect. Of course, she agreed. We will return to our vessel and await your decision. As they left the chamber, Threll whispered, 6 hours to decide the fate of the galaxy. Do you think they'll help? Nix watched the humans already huddled in intense discussion. I think they're already planning how to fight. The question is whether they'll do it as our allies or wait until the Drakari reach their doorstep. 5 hours later, Admiral Nix and Envoy Threll were summoned back to Earth. Rather than returning to the Defense Council chamber, they were escorted to a vast underground facility labeled Strategic Command Center. General Chen met them at the entrance, her expression grim but determined. The Council has reached a decision, Chen announced as they walked down a long corridor. We will assist the Confederation against the Drakari threat. Relief flooded through Nix's body, causing her scales to momentarily shimmer. The Confederation will remember Earth's aid in this darkest hour. Save the diplomatic pleasantries, Chen replied bluntly. We're not doing this out of charity. If these Drakari are as dangerous as you claim, it's in our interest to stop them before they reach our system. They entered a cavernous room filled with holographic displays and dozens of humans in military uniforms. At the center stood a three-dimensional representation of the Cygnus corridor, where the main Drakari fleet was currently advancing. Dr. Sharma approached, accompanied by a weathered human male with a prosthetic arm. Admiral, this is General Marcus Vega, our foremost expert in asymmetric warfare. Vega nodded curtly. We've analyzed your data on Drakari battle patterns. Your species fight like engineers. Logical, methodical, predictable. No wonder you're losing. Threll bristled at the criticism, but Nix silenced him with a gesture. Please elaborate, General Vega. You've been fighting a conventional war against an unconventional enemy, Vega explained, manipulating the holographic display to zoom in on Drakari ship formations. The Drakari adapt to patterns, so the solution is simple. Don't give them patterns to adapt to. Easier said than done, Threll muttered. Actually, it is that simple, Dr. Sharma interjected, bringing up another display showing a weapons schematic. We've developed several technologies that the Confederation apparently never pursued, weapons that operate on principles the Drakari likely haven't encountered. She gestured, and the display changed to show what appeared to be a primitive projectile weapon. This, for instance, while your civilizations abandoned kinetic weapons millennia ago in favor of energy-based systems, we continued developing them alongside our energy weapons. Admiral Nix studied the design with growing interest. Ballistic weapons against spacefaring vessels? Not just any ballistic weapon, Dr. Sharma clarified with a hint of pride. This launches projectiles using magnetic acceleration principles to achieve relativistic speeds. No energy signature to adapt to, just pure kinetic force. The Drakari's adaptive shields are designed to counter energy weapons, not physical impacts, at significant fractions of light speed. General Vega took over, changing the display again. We've also been developing these autonomous electronic warfare platforms designed to infiltrate and disrupt enemy systems. If the Drakari use any form of networked intelligence, these could introduce chaos into their command structure. Nix's 4 eyes widened as she began to understand. You're not planning to match their strength? We're planning to exploit their weaknesses, Chen confirmed. Adaptive systems require data to adapt. If we hit them with a dozen different attack vectors simultaneously, their adaptation will be spread too thin to be effective against any single threat. General Vega pointed to another section of the map. Your forces have been engaging the Drakari head-on. Instead, we propose a multi-pronged approach. Decentralized strike teams using constantly changing tactics and weapons systems. Never the same attack twice. For the first time since the HFY War began, Admiral Nix felt genuine hope. How quickly can you implement this strategy? Chen and Vega exchanged looks. We've already begun loading equipment onto our ready vessels, Chen replied. A deployment force can reach the Cygnus checkpoint within 18 hours using your FTL technology. 18 hours? Threll exclaimed. The Drakari will have breached the defensive line by then. Dr. Sharma smiled thinly. Actually, we've been running simulations based on your tactical data. We believe we can force the Drakari into retreat within 5 hours of engagement if they respond as predicted. Nick stared at the humans in disbelief. 5 hours to accomplish what 17 species couldn't do in 3 years. Sometimes, General Vega said quietly, the most dangerous opponent isn't the strongest one. It's the one you don't understand. The Confederation Defense Fleet at Cygnus Checkpoint Alpha was in disarray. 3 days of continuous Drakari attacks had reduced their numbers by nearly 30%. Admiral Zeltan of the Procyon Guard watched from his command ship as another destroyer succumbed to the relentless biomechanical swarms. Communication channels were filled with desperate pleas for reinforcement or retreat authorization. Admiral, his second-in-command, reported grimly, the Drakari main force is preparing for another push. Our forward sensors detect at least 300 capital ships advancing. Zeltan's facial membranes pulsed with resignation. Order all vessels to maintain defensive formation. We hold this line as long as possible. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving an incoming transmission from unknown vessels approaching from Vector 227. More Drakari? Zeltan asked wearily. No, sir. The transmission identifies them as human vessels. They're requesting permission to join our defensive line. Zeltan blinked in confusion. Humans? What in the void are humans doing here? Before anyone could respond, the view screen activated, showing Admiral Nix alongside a human female in a military uniform. Admiral Zeltan, Nix began, this is General Amara Chen of Earth. The humans have agreed to join our fight against the Drakari. Their fleet comes with new weapons and tactics that may turn the tide. Zeltan stared at the screen in disbelief. With all due respect, Admiral Nix, we are facing the main Drakari battle group. What can a handful of vessels from an unaligned world possibly contribute at this stage? General Chen leaned forward. Admiral Zeltan, I understand your skepticism, but I assure you, what we lack in numbers, we make up for in methods the Drakari have never encountered. We request you pull your remaining ships back to coordinates we're transmitting now. Pull back? Zeltan's membranes flared with indignation. That would leave the checkpoint completely exposed. Only temporarily, Nix assured him. The human strategy requires space to maneuver. Please, Admiral, we've exhausted all conventional options. After a moment of tense silence, Zeltan gave a gesture of reluctant assent. Very well. We have little left to lose. Transmit your coordinates. As the Confederation vessels began their strategic withdrawal, the human fleet moved into position. Unlike the sleek, uniform designs of Confederation ships, the human vessels varied wildly in size and configuration. Some appeared to be retrofitted civilian craft hastily outfitted with weapons systems. On the bridge of the UES Thermopylae, General Chen surveyed the tactical display showing the approaching Drakari Armada. All vessels. This is General Chen. The enemy force is exactly as briefed. They have not yet encountered human warfare. Let's keep them guessing. Execute Operation Hydra. The human fleet suddenly split into numerous smaller groups, each taking positions that appeared random and disorganized to conventional military doctrine. Admiral Zeltan watched in confusion from his command ship. "What are they doing?" he asked Nix, who had transferred to his vessel. "Their formation has no cohesion, no defensive overlap." "That's the point," Nix replied quietly. "The Drakari expect patterns. The humans are deliberately avoiding them." As the Drakari fleet advanced, their usual precision formation intact, the scattered human vessels remained motionless. The Drakari launched the first volley, streams of energy weapons that had quickly adapted to Confederation defenses. "They're not even attempting to evade," Zeltan noted with growing alarm as the energy weapons closed in on the human ships. Then, at the last possible moment, the human vessels released clouds of metallic particles, simple, non-technological chaff that dispersed the energy beams harmlessly. "Now," ordered General Chen from the Thermopylae, "all ships, commence primary attack sequence." What followed defied conventional space warfare tactics. The human vessels began firing what appeared to be solid projectiles, magnetically accelerated. Slugs of dense material traveling at relativistic speeds, the Drakari shields, calibrated to deflect energy weapons, offered minimal resistance against the kinetic impact. Dozens of Drakari ships suffered catastrophic hull breaches in the first exchange. "Secondary attack wave," Chen commanded calmly. The human fleet launched what appeared to be primitive nuclear weapons, technology long abandoned by advanced civilizations. But these had been modified, their detonation creating electromagnetic pulses of unprecedented intensity. The Drakari's biomechanical systems, unprepared for such crude but effective interference, began to falter and lose coordination. "They're adapting," reported a tactical officer on the Thermopylae. "Drakari vessels are reconfiguring shields to counter kinetic weapons." "As expected," replied General Vega, who stood beside Chen. "Initiate tertiary attack pattern." The human fleet regrouped yet again, this time launching small, stealthy craft that appeared to be little more than engines and guidance systems attached to massive drilling apparatuses. These boring craft attached themselves to Drakari hulls and began physically cutting through regardless of shields or energy defenses. From his command ship, Admiral Zeltan watched in astonishment. 3 completely different attack methodologies in less than an hour. The Drakari cannot adapt quickly enough. "That's not all," Nix commented as new readings appeared on their sensors. "The humans have deployed autonomous electronic warfare platforms throughout the battlefield. They're infiltrating Drakari communication systems." Throughout the Drakari fleet, confusion spread as their command networks came under assault from human viruses and AI countermeasures designed to exploit the very adaptability that made the Drakari so formidable. Ships began firing on their own, allies as targeting systems were compromised. 2 hours into the engagement, the Drakari attempted to regroup, pulling their remaining vessels into a defensive sphere. The human fleet responded by launching what appeared to be mining equipment repurposed as weapons, devices that generated localized gravity distortions, tearing apart Drakari ships from the inside. By the 3rd hour, the Drakari launched their adaptive swarms, microscopic machines that normally overwhelmed enemy vessels by reconfiguring to counter any defense. But the humans had anticipated this. They released clouds of engineered microorganisms, a biological response to a technological threat that the Drakari had no reference point to counter. "They're retreating," announced the sensor officer on Zeltan's command ship as the 4th hour began. The main Drakari fleet was indeed pulling back, abandoning damaged vessels and lost ground in a disorganized withdrawal never before seen from their forces. General Chen's voice came over the communication channel, calm and methodical. "All vessels, execute final containment protocol. Do not allow their command ships to escape with tactical data." The human fleet deployed its final surprise. Vessels that had appeared unarmed throughout the battle suddenly generated quantum, Entanglement fields, disrupting the Drakari's ability to enter FTL. Trapped and overwhelmed, the remaining Drakari ships fought with increasing desperation. As the fifth hour of battle drew to a close, Admiral Zeltan could scarcely believe the sensor readings. The Drakari main fleet, the same unstoppable force that had consumed 17 worlds, was in full retreat, having lost over 60% of their vessels. On the bridge of the Thermopylae, General Chen turned to Admiral Nix, who had joined, heard during the final phase. 5 hours, as projected. The Drakari may be adaptive, but they've never had to adapt to humanity before. 1 week after the Battle of Cygnus Checkpoint Alpha, as it was now being called, the Galactic Confederation reconvened in their Grand Council chamber. The atmosphere was markedly different. Where despair had reigned before, now cautious optimism filled the air. High Counselor Zeltrix stood at the central podium, flanked by Admiral Nix and, to the surprise of many delegates, General Chen. Esteemed representatives of the Confederation, Zeltrix began, crystalline features gleaming, we gather today to acknowledge what many thought impossible. The Drakari advance has not only been halted, but reversed. Their forces have withdrawn from 7 systems already, and intelligence suggests their collective is in disarray. Murmurs of astonishment rippled through the chamber. This victory, Zeltrix continued, would not have been possible without the intervention of a species many of us had dismissed or overlooked. I present to you General Amara Chen of Earth, representing humanity. General Chen stepped forward, her simple military uniform a stark contrast to the ornate garb of most delegates. She surveyed the vast chamber with measured composure. Representatives of the Galactic Confederation, she began, her voice carrying throughout the space without technological assistance. Humanity is honored to have contributed to the defense of galactic civilization. The Drakari threat is not yet eliminated, but we have demonstrated they are not invincible. The Valorian ambassador's environmental suit pulsed with colors of skepticism. How can we be certain this victory is not temporary? The Drakari have adapted to every strategy we've deployed in the past. Chen nodded acknowledgement of the concern. The key to our success was not any single weapon or tactic, but the deliberate application of unpredictability. We attacked using kinetics when they expected energy weapons. We deployed biological countermeasures against their technological systems. We used primitive nuclear technology alongside quantum entanglement fields. She gestured to a holographic display that materialized above the chamber floor, showing battle footage from Cygnus. The Drakari adaptation relies on pattern recognition. Humanity's military history has taught us that the most dangerous enemy is one whose patterns you cannot predict. Ambassador Talari of the Eldothian Republic spread her wings, now shimmering with colors signifying cautious hope. What happens now? Will humanity join us in pursuing the Drakari to their home systems? General Chen looked to Admiral Nix before responding. Earth is prepared to continue our alliance, but we propose a new strategy moving forward, one that incorporates elements from all our civilizations. The Drakari's greatest strength is adaptation. Our response must be diversity. High Counselor Zeltrix stepped forward again. General Chen has proposed the formation of a joint military command where tactics and technologies from all our species are deployed in constantly changing combinations. No pattern for the Drakari to adapt to. A delegate from the Mechanoid, Quintalix Collective, rose from their section. Our analysis suggests the Drakari will return with new adaptations. How can we be certain this strategy will continue to be effective? We can't, Chen answered honestly. But neither can they be certain of their ability to counter our methods. War is ultimately about uncertainty. The side that embraces this fact has the advantage. Admiral Nix addressed the chamber. The humans have offered to share their military doctrine and unconventional weapons designs with all Confederation species. In return, they ask only for what we already offered: medical technology, FTL improvements, and navigational data. Such an exchange seems inequitable, observed the Quintalix representative. Their contribution far outweighs these basic technologies. General Chen smiled slightly. Perhaps by your accounting, but from our perspective, the ability to cure disease and explore beyond our solar system represents a profound advancement for our civilization. Value is relative. High. Councilor Zeltrix raised their limbs for attention. Representatives of the Confederation, I call for a formal vote on two matters. First, the acceptance of humanity as full members of the Galactic Confederation, with all rights and privileges thereof. Second, the establishment of the Joint Strategics Command as proposed by General Chen. The voting process took less than 5 minutes, a record in Confederation history. Both proposals passed unanimously. As the session concluded, Admiral Nix approached General Chen privately. Your people accomplished in 5 hours what 17 species couldn't do in 3 years. The Confederation won't forget that. Chen's expression remained measured. We simply applied different thinking to the problem. Your civilizations have been at peace for so long, you forgot how to be truly unpredictable. And humanity remembers because our history is filled with conflict, Chen acknowledged without pride or shame. We've spent millennia fighting ourselves, developing countless ways to overcome adaptive opponents. It's not a history we're proud of, but it prepared us for this moment. Nix considered this soberly. The Drakari will return. They'll try to adapt to human unpredictability. Of course, Chen agreed. But now they face not just humanity, but 17 other species all learning to think like us. The next time they encounter the Confederation, they'll find an entity that has embraced our chaotic approach while maintaining your advanced technology. As they looked out over the council chamber, where delegates from diverse species were already gathering in excited discussion, Nix realized the galaxy had changed irrevocably. The Drakari had forced the Confederation to evolve, and humanity had shown them how. 5 hours to change the course of a war, Nix mused, and perhaps only 5 hours to change the course of galactic history. General Chen watched the interspecies collaboration unfolding before them. Sometimes, the smallest variable creates the greatest change. Humanity may be new to the galactic stage, but we've been rehearsing for this role our entire existence.